Welcome! Today we're going to be fitting a Noctua 5V fan to our retro machine. This will be the first time I've actually used a 5V Noctua fan. All my experience before has been with 12V fans. However, Noctua gets a very good name for the design of its fans, and I'm assuming this one will be no different. The fan that came with the c64 was indeed a 12V fan. However, since we're using an Odroid H2+, it needs a 5V fan. The only slight complexity is the Noctua fan comes with a standard fan header connector, and the Odroid motherboard itself takes a 4-pin miniature connector. So in order to connect these two different connectors, the Noctua fan set does come with an OmniJoin adapter set. This comprises of 4 3M Scotch lock connectors, which you can use to connect your standard larger 4-pin cable to a miniature 4-pin cable, which is exactly what we're going to do. This saves having to do any additional soldering. Additionally, the Noctua fan always comes with a nice explanatory booklet that explains how the fan works, what the connections are, and how the OmniJoin connector set actually works. This makes it remarkably easy to connect your fan to something with a non-standard header. Now we can have a look at the My Retro Computer My64. The insides we have pre-wired, and we now have the power switch wired up to the motherboard, and we have the cables for the main power supply hooked straight into the Odroid itself. We have yet to mount the mains connector into the case, and our USB keyboard connection is already set up. And I still have to decide exactly where this little board is going to be mounted inside the case. But we can do that a bit later. What we're concentrating on today is the mounting of the 40mm fan. We already have a space beside the motherboard where it will fit in quite nicely. We merely have to then mount it so it's fixed quite securely to the base of the unit. And how we're going to do that is we're going to mount a piece of maker beam, bolting that onto the fan itself, and then once that's been bolted on, we'll then mount that onto the main case using the existing ventilation slots. While this is a little fiddly, the M3 bolts will actually securely fit the fan onto the maker beam, and 2 additional bolts will then bolt the maker beam into the main base of the c64 using the ventilation slots. Since the M3 bolts are slightly wider than the ventilation slots, a few minutes work with a small file allows us to widen the slots marginally just so the unit will actually fix into place. And here we can now see the unit fixed into place in the case. Despite being a small fan, it's quite adequate to keep the Odroid H2 cool. Now all we have to do is to fit the cable onto the OmniJoins and hook it into the main motherboard. Here you can see the main pinouts of the cable that goes into the Odroid motherboard and what you would expect to see on a 12V fan. Here are also the main pinouts of the GPIO header. We're only at the moment making use of the pins for the power switch and the LED on it, but there are other pins I'd like to investigate using, namely the UARTs or the USB 2 pins. And here we see the fan in use. I did try and record the sound of the fan, but it is an exceptionally quiet fan, and I doubt you'll even notice it's running. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for watching.